Peter Schrager's here. Haven't talked to him in a while. He was just at the combine. A lot of people are saying he was the one that broke up the Starbucks fight. I don't think you got a lot of credit for that. You were like third man in, just trying to keep peace at an Indianapolis Starbucks. Combine, crazy place. You love it. Is this was that your favorite week of the year?
It's the best. It's the best because you see something on TV and you're like, all right, it's a bunch of people in their underwear working out. And like, it's not even 1% of what Combine Week is. And I would advise any young, aspiring NFL journalist, any NFL fan to like go for a couple of days, because as much as it's about the on-field drills, like you will bump into Mike Tomlin at a restaurant. You will see, Sean Payton just, having a private meeting with an agent out in the open in front of that JW Marriott Starbucks, which, by the way, it's like literally going to like Times Square and starting a fight when it's at Combine. That's like the hub of everything.
Right.
JW. So like 10 teams are at the JW. Every media member is at the JW. And for that interaction or that altercation or whatever it means to happen at that Starbucks, obviously the irony of Jordan Schultz's father being the longtime CEO of Starbucks is one thing, but to do it there in that public of a forum, like I got texts from, NFL coach, NFL GM, 3 agents, 4 different media members that like, oh, there was just something. So that is the crossroads of all things.
Yeah. So it was Jordan Schultz and Ian Rappaport, two NFL insiders, for lack of a better word. And it would have been funnier if it was because Rappaport made some sort of crack about your dad cost Seattle the Sonics. And that was it was like way more deep seated, but it just seemed like some insider kerfuffle. The big thing I'm looking at, and there's already been some buzz about the Giants trading up. I don't know. Do you feel like it was true that the Giants could have had Stafford and they had the draft pick compensation? Rich Eisen reported that yesterday. Do we feel like that is 100% accurate, that the Rams were just ready to trade Stafford to the Giants, or no?
No, I think that the Giants had the parameters in place and were willing to engage, but the Rams never went down that road in such a formal fashion. So They had conversations. Essentially, Stafford couldn't shop himself to any of these teams. He's not a free agent. So what the Rams did was they gave Jimmy Sexton, his agent, who's, big power. He's Nick Saban's agent. He's Parcells' agent, like a big agent, the ability to go look at what the market would be. And the Giants were obviously interested, and the trade.
But not for the first round pick, though,
no,
right? Probably
it
like a second
likely,
or third.
And I know it from all angles because of my relationship with McVay, but also my relationship with Stafford. So it was, go see what's out there and what destinations could be possible. And it came down to basically the Raiders being very interested in the Giants. And what I think the trade compensation would have been Giants give up their second round pick, which is the 34th pick. And then the Rams give back a third round and Stafford. But then Stafford would need to tear up the contract and have a massive contract, which would have been paying him close to $15 million more per year than what he's essentially going to play for with the Rams. And at the end of the day, like they went down this road. And as it dragged on day by day by day, I think at one point, like on Wednesday, I was like, wow, it might actually happen. And it might actually be the Raiders or the Giants. But then by Thursday, when I got word that like Stafford and McVay were having breakfast at 6:30 in the morning in LA, I'm like, it's done. Like, and this conversation started back at Super Bowl, whether that was like some of the rumors. And I got caught in a little bit of shit because I was interviewed and caught off guard. And it was like, what do you think about Stafford and the Rams? And I'm like, I just know that they're going to have conversations and figure out a new contract. But also, I know that McVay loves Jimmy G, and that set off like an entire
you got aggregated.
But if they were to move on from Stafford, which cooler heads prevailed, like they had backup plans. They had Jimmy G, and then all the reports are accurate that Rodgers could have very well been the next quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah,
I mean, the Giants are so stupid. What's the point of trading for Stafford? What are you going to win the Super Bowl in the next 3 years? Like there's nothing. You're going to give up a possible starter / all-pro in the second round because you want to go 7-10.
What was the alternative?
What's the alternative?
They think they're a quarterback away from being relevant, and I don't think it's that far off. Like I look at their team, I mean it. They get Andrew Thomas back at offensive tackle, and then last year Neighbors.
I didn't realize.
Neighbors
I'm bumping them up to 11 wins. Aren't they in the same division with Washington and Philly?
They're confident that this team is not that far off, and that the quarterback play was abysmal last year.
Come on,
well, let's
see. You can't believe that.
Why not? They've got first round picks all over the offensive line. They've got Malik Neighbors, and then they've got this.
One of those first round picks is Evan Neal, isn't it?
Sure. So that's a wash, right? So like Neal's not the guy.
Come on, they have no chance. Hey, I would be going the other way and trying to trade guys to get more picks and trying to
look
reboot
at their front four. You've got Dexter Lawrence, Thibodeau, and you got Brian Burns. Like they're not. This is a team that everyone's like, oh, I can't believe they got rid of Saquon. I can't believe they got rid of Saquon. Saquon wasn't going to do anything with the Giants last year, close to what he did with the Eagles. So what they do instead, they invested in their offensive line, and they got a high pick. Play.
But this is the point. Then talk yourself into Cam Ward if you think he can be a top 3 pick. I mean, so this is why I brought up Stafford, because the stuff has started today about they're going to leapfrog to 1. They're going to take him 1. It just feels like Cam Ward's going first in this draft.
He very well might.
It doesn't mean he's the best player. It doesn't mean it makes sense. But there's 3 teams right now who just have no idea who their quarterback's going to be. The Raiders have the best chance to probably stumble into one because they have all the cap space. The Giants, I don't know how they get one that actually make my case that I just laid out.
Yeah,
how are you going to make the playoffs? Like, you're better off betting on a guy who maybe can become the guy.
Here's the case for bringing in a Rodgers at 41
for the Giants.
Yes, here's the case. Hear me out. Motivated, cheap compared to what? Motivated. Yes. Okay. Embarrassed that the Jets said we're good without you. Motivated. Yeah. Cheap, comparable to a Stafford or to one of these, bigger,
definitely be cheap.
And you've got Brian Dable, who has had his name from being coach of the year to now being the clown of New York and being considered a joke. Like 2 guys that know football inside and out, and like, hey, let's say screw it and let's get the giant chip on our shoulder and see. Now, look,
that was the case.
Would they love to get to 1? Sure, they would love to get to 1. But here's the deal: Rodgers, as much as you don't like him, as much as Kimball doesn't like him, as much as Cousin Sal doesn't like him, players like him. His teammates like him.
The Jets fans didn't like him. Can we throw them in? Can we throw in how he looked last year, where he had no legs and didn't want to get hit and was terrible?
I think he had 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I'm pushing the boulder up the hill here. I'm trying. But I would say this, the alternatives of, hey, we could roll out Rodgers and still get a young quarterback, and you have Rodgers as your quarterback for this year, and you're not throwing someone to the wolves and saying, hey, go out there and play for your first season right out of the gates. That's the argument to make. I would also add that, the Titans have the first pick in the draft. Will Levis will not be their starting quarterback week 1. I know that's not not necessarily out there. I don't see
he gave it a
happening.
Good run.
I don't think the Browns are going to start Deshaun Watson because he can't physically, but I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to have many snaps, if any, again, as a Cleveland Brown in his NFL career. I'll say that. So that's a second team. Then you got the Giants. Then you got the Jets. Then you got the Raiders. So this whole...
So you have 4 teams in the top 7, basically, that desperately need a quarterback.
Yes. So
which is why Cam Ward has to go first. And it's not even going to matter whether he should be the first pick. And usually, what is it? It's 50-50 with a quarterback that high. Yeah, those are the odds from the last 25 years. It might even be like 35-65 for him to be good.
Totally.
But you still got to do it.
And look, if you're the Titans and you can, maybe trade back and still get Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter at 3 or at 5 or at 2, or that's fine, but you still don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
So to me, the Titans, and I've done a lot of work and talked to everybody this week, like, everyone assumes they're going to go Carter 1 or Hunter 1, and they're going to let someone trade up. No, like I wouldn't dismiss Cam Ward at 1. Get us the quarterback, and then we could figure it out and get a bridge quarterback if we need. And by bridge quarterback, I'm not talking Sam Darnold. I'm talking like a Jared Stidham or a Taylor Heineke or like one of those guys. Because last year, but those are the guys that start off like a Jacoby Brissett last year or a Marcus Mariota in the room. I know, but if
this is the Raiders last year, right? Well, Minshew, he'll be a stopgap.
Sure,
and then
if
he's
you
just
get
awful.
Cam Ward, you're good, and you've got your guy.
Yeah.
So, I talked to Cliff and Adam Peters a bunch, and it's like the underrated guy in this whole process for Jaden Daniels was having Mariota there because he had a veteran to learn from who had that's almost as key as drafting the right quarterback is getting the right room. And last year, Caleb had Tyson Bagent and a couple undrafted guys and like a bunch of like second, third options as quarterback
Drake
coaches.
May had Brissett, which I think was a bonus considering he didn't have a coaching staff, but at least he had Jacoby Brissett.
And look at what Drake May's got this year. You now add in Josh McDaniels. You add in Todd Downing. You suddenly have like a real staff around him and guys that have been there and done that. And of course, Vrabel is an upgrade at head coach as well.
I was texting with Todd McShay about this morning. Isn't a likely scenario that quarterbacks go 1-2, even if it makes no sense whatsoever? Because nobody's been able to explain to me why the Browns wouldn't take a quarterback.
They absolutely
when Deshaun Watson isn't playing again, they're absolutely screwed with the cap. There is no possible way they can acquire anybody. And this is their one chance to actually add somebody. So there's been the Sanders stuff and the stories about the stories and the narratives behind the narratives. We've gone in 9 different directions. And
we're just
anonymous QB coaches.
Just wait.
Yeah, it's going to get worse and worse. And it's also, he's, got a famous father who might decide, I want to nudge him toward a certain team and is going to know some tricks some other families don't, which by the way, I think that should happen more often. I think that should happen with Cooper Flagg in the NBA. Like, you have the leverage. We always talk about player empowerment with the NBA and pick your team.
Veterans,
Like, it's never with the rookie. We saw it with Eli Manning where he didn't want to go to San Diego, ended up with the Giants. Like, I'm always amazed it doesn't happen more often. But if Deion is like, I want Sanders on Vegas, that's just how this is going to play out. It would be pretty hard for the rest of the league to stop that. Anyway, I feel like there's a 1-2 scenario with the QBs, right?
Absolutely. And Cleveland, very interested in quarterbacks. And you look at the free agent crop right now. I don't have a team for Sam Darnold that's given him $40 million. I think Sam Darnold, who had arguably the best 17 weeks of his life, had maybe the most disastrous and financially prohibitive 8 days any quarterback's ever had in NFL history.
Oh shit, you're right. It wasn't even 2 weeks. It was 8 days.
8 days. It was that
it's
Sunday
like
night.
A Hawaii trip.
It really is. It's like White Lotus. It was like
he had White Lotus season 4. I've lost $80 million.
Yes, he was like Isaac's. Yeah, exactly. Saxon, what a name. You've got the Sunday night against the Lions. Then you have an even worse disastrous performance against the Rams 8 days later in Arizona. And it went from being potentially lying around the block of teams to like this week at the Combine, not a lot of Darnold love. So can't go back to the Jets. Doesn't really sound like the Giants. I don't think the Raiders are doing flips over Sam Darnold. The Steelers seem to be pretty happy and going for Justin Fields is what the latest I've heard. So now the teams are rather limited. Are the Browns going to break the bank after already paying Deshaun and now pay for Sam Darnold? I don't know. So Darnold's number 1 on that list. And then it's like very quickly gets to Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson and I said Jared Stidham. Like, those are the names. And it's not exactly previous years where there's this long list of, well, Baker Mayfield might be a possibility, or we could do like, you might be looking at for the Browns, like, all right, it's Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, or we draft someone at 2. And when you're at that point, you're like,
that's chilling.
Let's draft someone at 2.
Which is why the Giants would have to leapfrog the Browns at 2 to get Cam Ward, which is why I think Cam Ward is going to be the first pick.
And I'm with you. And I also think Giants beat the Colts in a insignificant week 16 game, and Malik Neighbors had about 200 yards, and it cost the Giants the top 2 picks. And now
are you talking about the Drew Lock game? That's what it's called now, right? The Pats had the Joe Milton game, and there was but Drew Lock was incrable in that game because I bet on the Colts. Drew Lock was lights out. I mean, you could make a case like, yo, look at that Drew Lock tape. Maybe we have the solution in house.
Maybe he's a free agent himself. So I think it's a very good possibility that despite the fact that this draft class at quarterback is nowhere near last year's, like those 1, 2, 3 picks last year, those guys we've been talking about for 12 months, and it was no brainer. They were going 1, 2, 3. And it was like, if you can get in the top 3, you're getting a franchise quarterback. Now, Bo Nix was not viewed this way. Michael Penix wasn't seen as a top 10. And McCarthy was like this wild card, which still is a wild card. This year, Cam Ward's got huge upside, but despite the great years he's had at Washington State and Miami, he's not viewed in that same category as those top 3 guys. And then it's a giant drop-off from what I gather. And then just viewed as prospects, not necessarily how they turn out. Shador, Jackson Dart, and then a bunch of unknowns. So
you have Shador like next to Jackson Dart potentially.
Yeah. I think Shador is viewed closer to Jackson Dart than Shador is viewed closer to Cam Ward.
So he could be a drop chip on the shoulder guy?
Absolutely. And you're talking about leverage that Dion had. I don't know if they have leverage unless they've got an agreement from a team that's like, hey, no matter what, we're taking him. Don't worry. You guys can
Can I zag? I'm going to zag.
Let me hear.
Son of a famous person. Tough. Seems like he's smart. It seems like the thing that people are worried about with him is the athleticism more than anything. But he's got the toughness and the competitiveness that they like. And I do feel like as we get closer, the teams start talking themselves into the pluses.
Yeah.
Because the minuses aren't like, this guy's kind of a wuss. This guy's not a leader of men. You know, they're more
not
like
a diva. Don't read any of that shit. He's not a diva. This guy chose to go to Jackson State.
Right.
Also, I tweeted this yesterday, and I'm sure it was the tweet that signed off a million. No one cared. I tweeted this yesterday that the one thing a GM told me, don't sleep on Shedeur with this, is he is tough as shit. Got the shit kicked out of him the last few years and got up every single time.
Right.
And they love that. That
leader
is
of men. Tough.
You don't love the fact that he's been beaten around a bunch, but you do love the fact that he didn't cry about it, didn't whine about it, got up. He was against he was behind an inferior offensive line on a team that was really just like slapped together in the last couple of years, and they put together some wins early, but this was not the same level of talent that necessarily a Jackson Dart had at Ole Miss or a Quinn Ewers had at Texas. Yeah. This was Shedeur. And his point at the Combine, and it rubbed people wrong the way he had some bravado at it, is that he changes places when he gets there. So Jackson State obviously went from this HBCU that like had no resources to suddenly being a national name. And then he goes to Colorado, and we had 1 week where Big Noon Kickoff from Fox and Game Day were there on week 2 vying for, real estate in Boulder. It happens. And the Dion thing is real, but there's also a lot of positives to that, in that he's the son of one of the greatest football players ever, and he's seen how to handle yourself as a pro, and he's seen how the business works. And Shedeur has never wavered in that he is a leader, and those guys do respect him.
There's the other piece of that when you think about quarterback prospects, because there's 2 versions of it, right? There's a quarterback who had the weight of the college on their shoulders. And then there's the guy who was on an awesome team where the program was kind of the star and they were the quarterback of it. And some of the guys that have succeeded, especially recently, Drake May, he stayed in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. He was the whole program. He took all the leadership responsibilities, and it was, even though the record kind of came and went, but he was whatever. Bo Nix was in the spotlight in real ways in different colleges. And then Jaden Daniels, same thing. And then he has that LSU year where I just wonder sometimes, is it better to, in college, you're really the guy, at least for a year, does that prep you in a certain way to, whereas you look at like a Trubisky, like I would study if I was a team.
Hey, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, 14 starts.
Have somebody study like the ones that didn't work, and like what are the common denominators, and one of them is like not enough starts. Like that was a Trey Lance thing too. Mm-hmm. How big was the spotlight? How much pressure were they under on this limited level, and how did that go to how is that going to transfer? Sanders had like a giant spotlight on him for 3 years there, which I think is a positive.
Yeah, I mean, the Colorado years, but also in Jackson State, they really put a lot of resources into marketing that thing. And like the fact he decided to go there and they brought Hunter there, that was a major story for a lot of reasons.
They were in the limelight. It was those 2 and Dion. It was a real thing.
And Troy Aikman would show up at games, and they had it became a thing. I think last year might have changed the narrative a little bit. Bo Nix played 61 games in college. He was older than every other prospect in that draft. He shows up and he was immediately dismissed by a lot of teams because, well, we've seen Bo Nix, like there's no upside. And Sean Payton, who I'm going to always talk about if I get an opportunity, was like, I like the fact he's played 61 games and did it in the SEC and then played at the Senior Bowl and then was in, major college games. Like, I like that fact. So this year, you've got this guy, Tyler Shuck, who's not being discussed at all. Watch. He will be rising off draft boards. He was out of Louisville, but was at Texas Tech before that and somewhere else before that. He's played a ton of college football, is 25 years old. And in the past, it would be like, we don't want that. Shuck's stock is rising because of all the experience he's had.
Purdy parallel.
Brock Purdy, same thing. He played all those years at Iowa State. Like, we like that because, Cam Ward, we know he went from Washington State to Miami. He started out Incarnate Word. That was his first school. Zero offers anywhere. But he changed that program, went to Washington State, and on a bad Washington State team, competed with all of the Pac-12 heavies and did well. and then goes over to Miami and breaks every school record and ends up with the most touchdowns ever thrown in college football. And it's like, that's a resume. That is life lessons. That is adversity. That is different offenses. It's
going into a new situation, having to meet a bunch of people,
and I'm going to be the alpha.
Yeah.
I know we're a little bit all over the place, but like,
no, can we go back to the experience though for a second? Because I think this is actually the case for Darnold, who I think is now an underrated asset. He had 27 games at USC, right, where he started.
Yep.
And then if you go in as a pro, he started 73 games over the last 8 years. He's at 100 career starts now and looked great until those last 2 weeks. Is that a Minnesota offensive line issue? Was it a scheming issue? Was it just that he played 2 great teams? Like, I feel as if we get closer to free agency, there's going to be teams tilting it and going glass half full, because if you can get him for less than the Baker.
What's the number?
Let's say you can get him for 15 to 20. Let's say you can get him to
15 to 20. Yes. The question is
you
someone
can do that
like 30 to 40?
But you're telling me the Raiders wouldn't want to spend $20 million a year on Sam Darnold if they couldn't get the thing? That would be Brady just being like, this guy doesn't have it, I'm out.
Yeah, that's what that would be. That would, if that's his number and the Raiders aren't in, that's Brady saying, I don't give my, vote of approval on this. Look, now that we're 2 months removed, and I think this might have been the case, and I'm not making excuses for them. I think that Sunday night game, with so much buildup and so much on the line for the Vikings and the Lions, killed both those teams. That they just,
it was like a regular season Super Bowl.
It was a Super Bowl. They destroyed each other. They knew what was at stake. You had a home field during the playoffs. The number 1 seed was in the balance as well, and like it was the most significant football game in the regular season this league has ever seen for both teams, and they both just destroyed each other and put everything into it. That they were both completely flat the next time we saw them. And the Lions, of course, they lose on the Saturday that follows, but then the Vikings lost the Monday that preceded that. So Darnold, those 8 days, and everyone I speak to who's negative on Darnold is like, well, that's what you hoped you never saw again, that he erased it. But like, there it was. That was the
35 and 12. I mean, if it's Aaron Rodgers versus Darnold, come on. Kyle's going to turn the TikTok camera on because I have a very important Tom Brady point.
Okay, let's go.
Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. Brought me 6 Super Bowls. One of my favorite athletes of all time. This is a dangerous thing where you have him running a football team, thinking he knows what's best with quarterback because he was a great quarterback. Because all of the evidence with the great players we've ever had, name the sport, mostly they're not good at this. They think they're seeing things that other people don't see, and it's not actually rational. Like Magic Johnson. Lonzo Ball got hurt, obviously, but Magic Johnson took Lonzo Ball over Jason Tatum, right? You have like Wayne Gretzky ran a hockey team. How did that go? I'm trying to think. Who was?
I don't have much on the Coyotes. Were they no good? Was Shane Doan not good enough? I don't know.
But Michael Jordan ran the Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats for forever.
Big Sean May guy.
Couldn't have been worse. Steered them toward Kwame Brown, the Wizards, steered them toward Kwame Brown over Pau Gasol and those guys because he liked what he saw from Kwame Brown in a workout. Like, I don't know if I trust the greatest players ever on stuff like this.
That's an interesting take. Is there the argument against that?
Because you don't want to argue
Jerry West. Jerry West is the greatest evaluator the NBA's ever seen.
West. So Jerry West is a positive. There's some that win. I'm just saying it's not a slam dunk, but I think part of the problem is if you and I are in that room with Tom Brady, and we're like, yo, man, we think Darnold, like, look at these first 17
right away.
And Brady's like, I'm out. I watched that game. He doesn't have it. I'm out. Are we going to argue with Tom Brady?
Yeah.
So it's just now it's like this one voice that just sees what he wants to see.
Fascinated by the Raiders setup, and John Spytek is the new GM. He was in Tampa for years, and before that, Denver, and is really a good evaluator. And I interviewed him at the Combine on camera for NFL Network, and I said, all right, you got a lot of voices now because it's not just Brady. Pete Carroll's going to have opinions. Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator. Oh. And then you've got, all these different voices that are now new ownership group. You've got, the Melman people. It's like, okay, now we've got all this. And whoever this quarterback's going to be is going to be their first big unveiling of here's our group decision. That's a lot of pressure on that quarterback. I don't think they're just going to go with a Minshew O'Connell thing. I think they're going to try to find.
No, they're going to get somebody. Could there be some new owner syndrome with this?
Yes,
where they're like, Yeah, we need to make a splash. Got to get somebody really good. Got to get Chip Kelly's offense. Got to find the right person. Nice, mobile, whatever.
And I would go through Brady's relationships with some of these guys. What's his relationship with Rodgers? They've known each other 20 years. They've been competitive. What's his relationship with Russell Wilson?
I can't believe
they've played in a Super Bowl together. Is Russell Wilson going to be the quarterback of the Vegas Raiders? Like
Geno Smith?
Do you trade for Geno, who has a great relationship with Pete Carroll?
If you're the Seahawks and you can get a high second-round pick for Geno Smith and then spend $20 million a year on Sam Darnold for 3 years and just invest in your offensive line and be like, if we can actually block for this guy with the guys we have, we can actually do this. I would do that.
That's why this is fun. It's such a weird class of quarterbacks because you have these potential Hall of Famers and Hall of Famers at the last stage of their career. I mean, Cousins, we don't even know if he can move anymore, but he was going to be available if someone wants to trade for him.
He's more available for TV.
Yeah, Russell Wilson.
You might be doing TV for him on network TBD in about 6 months.
Don't laugh. Don't laugh. Amy Poehler might have a pod right next to Russell Wilson's if we keep on going down this road. Like this is it.
Who knows?
No joke, though. Like, this is the last stop on the tour, and then you hope that you have a young guy that can come in as well. And then there's like this middle tier. I keep on saying Stidham's name. I think Jared Stidham's going to make a ton of more money than anyone expects because he's this like 28-year-old guy who's been in multiple systems. And when he plays well.
Take a breath.
This is it. Patriots fans.
So if Jared Stidham makes more money than Sam Darnold, what are we doing?
He won't make more than Sam Darnold, but he will be a coveted free agent more than you would imagine because of the dearth of quarterbacks available and how important the position is.
At this point, like go take a look at Joe Milton's Week 18 game tape and talk yourself into that. If we're going
trade
down
for Joe
Jared
Milton,
Stidham.
Don't laugh. Yeah. I mean, Joe Milton went. What round was he last year? 4th, 5th, 6th. Joe Milton could go for a 5th or 4th round pick. Like
he was really good in that last game. Let's take a break. I got lots more to cover with you. This episode is brought to you by Uber Eats. It's winter. Or it's the tail end of winter. You can now get almost anything you need for the coldest stretch of the year delivered with Uber Eats. What do I mean by almost? Well, you can't get a snowplow delivered, but you can get snow peas delivered. Snow angel? No. Angel hair pasta? Sure. Sunshine? That's a no. A bottle of wine? That's a yes. Yes, Uber Eats can get you that along with a side of garlic bread and creme brulee to top all of it off. Little angel hair pasta, bottle of wine. Sounds great. Get almost anything for your winter delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details. All right, so quick tangent that I'm going to bring back to the NFL. In the NBA, the bleakest situations right now are the Suns and the Sixers and now the Mavericks, who made this catastrophic Luka trade and then Kyrie's out for the year. And it's just, you just look at those and you go, wow, this 3-4 year window here, pretty bleak. Who, in your opinion, like, especially like being around everybody last week, who are the bleak franchises other than the Browns? We're just going to grandfather them in. The Browns have to be number one bleak, but who else is in that conversation?
Well, the Browns is bleak because their star player also is demanding a trade and they don't plan on trading him. So you add on just, terrible results and a question at quarterback, and then you have the star player being unhappy. So that's the Browns.
Would we say that's the gold standard of bleak right now? It has to be.
Yeah, but they were in the playoffs 2 years ago, and they do have young talent. So it's like there's always this hope springs eternal. We get the right quarterback.
Oh, the Browns fans feeling good all of a sudden. They're like Schrags. They're in on the Browns.
Schrags. I'm in on all 32, as you know.
Yeah.
I think the Jets situation's pretty bleak right now in that they feel like they got the right coach and they feel like they got the right GM, but you've got a bunch of young players who are up for giant contract extensions in the next couple of years, and you do not have a quarterback, and you went down this road with Rodgers, and now it's like we're sort of a good team with names on the roster, but we have nothing to show for it, and we have a complete X factor at quarterback, and we're just out of the top 5 to actually draft one that we could just pick. We'd have to move and be able to do that. So to me, I think the Jets will be in on Justin Fields. I don't know if Justin Fields would leave Pittsburgh to go to the Jets. Now, money talks. Yikes. But even if you get Justin Fields and you like Justin Fields and you think you've seen things from Justin Fields, if you're a Jets fan, are you doing flips over, okay, we're now ready to take on Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow with Justin Fields and
Drake May.
And Drake May, sorry.
Thanks. Justin Fields. So you'd have Jets, who else? Because I would say, at least with the Jets, there's a lot of talent there.
There is, but
there's moves.
You've got to pay Sauce and Garrett, and all these guys are going to be up for contracts. And they had all these first, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, you name it. And then, of course, you mentioned Sauce. They all got to get paid if you want to keep them.
Well, they're already letting DJ Reed go, which I thought was kind of shocking. He was good last year.
DJ Reed's a good player. And he's going to be
come to the Pats, DJ Reed.
Don't laugh. I think the Pats are going to be very aggressive in free agency, and I think they're going to load up this year.
Wait, hold on. I was going to end with the Pats. So Jets Bleak, Browns Bleak. Would you throw the Saints in there?
Yes, because it looks like there's still a question with Carr. Like, is Carr the quarterback? And they've got salary cap issues.
What's the question? How much do we hate ourselves?
How much do we keep him? It sounds like they've, the comments that were made by Mickey Loomis at the combine was that they're in on Derek Carr still, and I thought he would be in that same boat as Cousins and whatever. And you could, if you're the Titans and you got Brian Callahan who coached Carr with the Raiders, it's like, all right, well, give us Derek Carr and we'll figure it out. But it sounds like the Saints are all in on Derek Carr, and they still have this bloated salary cap that they can't get out under. So I think the Saints is pretty bleak.
Wait, when you say he's in the same boat as Kirk Cousins, are you talking about the Titanic? What boat is that? Is that boat still floating?
We say this, and yet there are teams that are going to convince themselves that, it's better than the alternative, and we'll pay these guys real money. Like, that's just where we're at.
What happened with the Raiders last year is the point for that. You just don't want to have a season where you're the Raiders and you realize, like, by the third preseason game, like, wow, our quarterbacks suck. This is going to be terrible.
You got Desmond Ridder at quarterback in week 16 on national TV. Like, that's not where you want to be. Saints last year were rolling out Spencer Rattler in big games. Like, quarterback is everything. And so the Saints, it sounds like they're going still with Derek Carr. That was the comment made, but we've seen these things change. But their salary cap situation's no good either.
Would you go bleak for the Cowboys? Semi-bleak?
No.
Medium bleak?
Bleak in that it feels like the other two teams have surpassed them in their division, and they're still going to have to pay Micah Parsons, and they've got Dak on this contract and CD, and like, I don't know how they're going to pay all these pending free agents that they have, and that it's going in the wrong direction. But gosh, you hire, you don't even do a full search, and it's like, we're just going to keep it going with Brian Schottenheimer. It's hard to look at your fan base and say, well, it's totally going to be different. Well, we just elevated the guy who was number 2 to Mike McCarthy, and we're not going to have any new fresh talent besides what we already have, and we missed the playoffs last year. The question is, how does Dak return from injury? Because he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Right. Well, the offseason, especially this part, and when we head into free agency draft, is all about, how do I convince my fan base to be potentially excited about something? And the Cowboys can be like, hey, Dak's healthy. We got Parsons. We have 3 of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
We're the Cowboys. I don't know what the case. What's the case for the Saints? We have no cap space, and Derek Carr's coming back, and we hired the 9th coach who got hired.
Yeah.
And we're in the NFC South. Never know.
Yeah. And you're in a market that, it's a good team with a great tradition and a great city, but it's not like New Orleans is viewed by the NFL as like the Cowboys or, the Giants or one of these premier franchises.
Do you feel like it's less bleak in Jacksonville? Or dude, it's better. Okay. Give me stuff on this.
It can go, this is like a social experiment in a lot of ways. I went out of my way at the combine to meet a lot of these people that I had never met before. That's always what I like to do. I like to put a list down of like, here are 10 names. They're all going to be in Indianapolis. Get to know them. They're young, they're up and coming, and then you become friendly enough with them where over the years you bond a relationship and you form. They hired a 28-year-old offensive coordinator in Grant Udinski. 28. And I was doing the math in my head. I'm like, all right, I know how old I am. I know where I was like, when OJ was on the chase and Ewing was playing Olajuwon, he wasn't born yet. And that's where that's in my head. Like, this is how young he is. Josh McCown tells me, he was with him in Minnesota. This kid's brilliant, but that's your offensive coordinator. Your head coach, Liam Cohen, who I've known, he was UMass's quarterback. And I wrote a book with Victor Cruz way back when in 2011. And when Victor Cruz was like the sensation, his quarterback was Liam Cohen in college. So I got to know Liam then when we were working on this book. And I've seen Liam bounce. Liam is a young, really untested head coach, first-time head coach. So you got that too. And then at GM, they hired a guy named James Gladstone, who's 34 years old. And he was with the Rams, and he was living in St. Louis while the Rams were in LA, and he kind of was doing the scouting from a satellite office, but he was Les Snead's like number 2. And the Rams give him a lot of credit for these recent drafts, including Puka Nacua and including some of the Braden Fisk and, Jared Verse. That said, you're talking 34-year-old GM, 28-year-old offensive coordinator, first-time head coach, and then a first-time defensive coordinator, and Anthony Campanile. So to me, it's like, it's fun, it's fresh, it's different. It's not hiring Urban Meyer or Doug Peterson.
It's a strategy. We're young.
It is different. And then, Shad Khan, whatever. And then like Tony Khan, I talked to at the Super Bowl, and like he's talking about wrestling to me, like, and I think that's his priority is the AEW. And he's like, Shrakes,
he writes every episode. He runs
it's amazing. He's like, Shrakes, his eyes are all darting all over the place talking.
Shrakes, you should do something where you come into the ring and you get hit with a chair.
MJF is gonna knock you out with a Burberry scarf on. I'm like, yeah, no.
He's probably trying to book Ian Rappaport and Schultz to have some sort of Starbucks match.
He would love that.
They can whip lattes at each other.
Big sponsor, Starbucks, or in this case, maybe Dunkin'. But like, I honestly think that it's like this football experiment where it's like, let's just do fresh eyes and young and hire guys. And like, obviously, I love that. I hate going retread. I don't like the fact that we just typically are like, oh, well, this guy worked for this guy, and then we just hire him. Like, they're all fresh faces, and Jacksonville's fun to me now.
I'm going to give you a possible Bleak candidate, and you're going to be upset.
Why are we so negative? Let's be positive.
This is the last one. I'm going positive in 1 second.
Okay.
Are the Dolphins in the Bleak zone?
It was Bleak
Tyreek probably pushing for the trade. McDaniel, even though he got an extension, I'm sure he's definitely on First Coast Fired watch, I would think. Tua, who knows? Salary cap, classic salary cap team where they had to pay these guys, and now it's all fucked up. Like and they're in a division with the Bills. The Pats are going to be better. The Jets won't be better, but I wonder if they're on Bleak watch.
Here's where I would say there's a possible turn in that. Like, first of all, a lot of these teams, they show up at the combine, they do media maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, they fulfill that and thing. Maybe they'll stay Thursday, then they're out of there. Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and Dan Marino were in that Dolphins suite until the bitter end when the offensive linemen were working out on Sunday. Like, and they were locked in.
Dan Marino. What's he doing?
Dan Marino's got an executive role right now with the Dolphins, working with the team. And as we're talking about former players and Tom Brady and all this stuff now, Dan Marino's, he's present. He's got a voice. They brought him back into the fold a couple of years ago, and he was at the combine and fully engaged with all of it. Now, last year's draft, they hit with Chop Robinson. He was really good for them as a rookie.
Yeah, he was good. I liked him.
Jalen Wright, the running back. But to your point, when Tua went down, they weren't ready for that kind of adversity, and things went off the rails. And you saw Tyreek Hill and his comments in that final game about, it just was like desolate, and it was the kind of thing you would never want to hear from a veteran leader. That said, Dolphins, they still have a ton of talent on that roster, and I do think the players still respond to McDaniel. So I'm not bleak on the Dolphins, and
I'm not sure I think that, but
what do you think on Tua? Like, they paid him, he was injured again.
I have real concerns about McDaniel. I have real concerns about Tua, and I have real concerns about we're going to wake up 3 days from now and Tyreek Hill's like, I want to be a Charger.
Yeah.
Let's make that happen, guys.
Yeah. It would be the Chiefs, not the Chargers. He still he tweets every other day about how much he loves
the Chiefs.
It would be the Chiefs?
So,
yeah. Yeah.
Is that even possible?
Yes.
The Chiefs just have an unlimited salary cap. I don't know how they do it. It's like, hey, we're going to franchise tag our left guard.
And Andy's magic. Andy will trade you away. Andy will cut you. And then, the players long for
back.
Andy. Yeah. They want to go play for him again. By the way, you saw the John Cena, dropping the mic. You saw that. That's Mahomes this year. That's where he's at right now. I think like he's gone villain. Like everyone just.
Good.
I think we're gonna have a different.
Good.
This is gonna be a fun year.
He had an incredibly disappointing season by his standards last year. The Super Bowl was a disaster. So I hope he's motivated. The anti-Bleak watch. You go to combine, and these teams are like. It's like the sky has opened. It's after it's rained for a week straight, and all of a sudden it's the first sunny day, and everybody's like, I want to go outside. We don't have to talk about the Pats. I talk about them too much.
We can. We can.
Well, we can do that at the very end. But who else is in that?
Washington.
The skies have opened. Washington.
Okay. It is like the Angels. And last year at the Combine, I interviewed Adam Peters on camera. He's a GM coming from San Francisco, first-time GM. Super nervous on NFL Network beforehand. What questions are we going to do? And then this year comes in all swagged out, has like,
he's wearing the Palenka jacket.
No doubt. He's got the jacket. He's got the custom Jordans. He comes in. He's like, ask me anything. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
They trade.
Ask me how great Jada Daniels in him. Daniels is. I'd love to talk about that.
They have a ton of salary cap space. Everyone loves their coach. Like Dan Quinn's got that Andy Reid thing where like players just love him. And they just trade for Debo. And I do want to say this. I think people misread the NFL. Like the Cowboys got crushed because they traded a 4th rounder for Jonathan Mingo. And everyone's like, how could you trade a 4th rounder for Mingo? And they trade a 5th rounder and they get Debo. They're taking on Debo Samuel's entire contract. So that's $21 million.
The Niners, it was basically them 100%. Cutting him.
And that was the team that was willing to take it. And Adam Peters drafted Debo in San Fran, and Anthony Lynn coached him. And Cliff is like, please bring him. Like, he'll be motivated and we'll make it work. But
Can I give you my 30-second Debo take as an intermission?
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco being like, yeah, we're good. Take him. It reminded me of the Celtics with Marcus Smart. And this is where I bring the Celtics into a football podcast.
Fine. Like they knew something.
But, it was, and watching him, and this was the case Priscilla and I made on the podcast after that trade. It was like, that dude's body's been through a lot. We watched him for the last 9 years. He took a million charges. He was on the floor all the time. And I think they're getting out a year too early instead of a year too late with his body. So what happens? He goes to Memphis. He breaks down, and he has not been healthy ever since.
I think where's he playing now? I saw a picture of him
on
this week.
Yeah, he's like a veteran on Washington. So I look at Debo, and like you, I watch football every week. Debo took a fucking ton of hits. The way they used him, he was like a crash test dummy. And I just wonder if they were like, I think we took this as far as we can go. If it starts to dip, it could be on somebody else's team.
Absolutely. You're right. But in the same breath, like Washington knows what they're inheriting. Like Cliff watched every snap of Debo.
Well, it's like this incredible toy for Cliff. Holy shit. He cannot
wait. And he's like, please. And also,
he's going to have 40 Debo plays.
Yeah. And also, he was 20 pounds overweight, whatever you want to say. Like, and now he's going to the final year of his contract. Give me a motivated chip on his shoulder and a contract year, Debo. Like, sure. So like, it wasn't like it was a false.
That was like you on TV last year. That was the same thing. I just felt like a giant chip on your shoulder.
Let's go. You want to disrespect Debo and Schrager? You're going to get the best of us.
I'll do anything. I'll do any hit.
Send me anywhere.
Contract year.
Let's go.
So the Washington thing, the vibes are unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Great coach, great GM, franchise QB, most beloved guy in Washington. Even more than Ovechkin. House is like, can't even come up with somebody on par with him at this point. You have to go back to like the Gibbs era. Who else is the skies have parted? Give me another team. Would you say Chargers? Rosie Chargers or not totally?
Season ended weird. That loss to Houston. So there's kind of like a bad taste. And also
Bosa might be out.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Chargers. I'm trying to think. Denver, those guys. They are super high on what they've got. All young players, Bo Nix. I had a really cool opportunity Friday night. The Broncos do a team dinner at the Combine, and it's everyone from the team doctor to the head coach to like the intern, anyone who's in Indianapolis. I'd say 60 people. And Sean Payton, does a big team dinner. I don't think any other teams do this in this way. And they rent out a room at Prime 47, which is the big steakhouse. And Payton, let me come in and just hang with them at the table. And like, when you feel like good vibes team, it's everyone's busting balls, everyone's laughing, everyone is like having a great, and they have such confidence in this quarterback that they're like, we're set. Like this has been the albatross around this franchise since Peyton Manning left. We finally got our guy, and they will be active in free agency, and they will get a good running back.
And they have a little more money this year, right?
Yeah, they finally have money. They've had no money, but like up front last year, like Zach Allen had a career year when they're paying him, but Alex Singleton was great. Like, and then they've got Surtain, this amazing corner. They're set. They are going to get a running back in this draft. And that's always been Sean Payton's like favorite position to tinker with. And they haven't had, he calls it the Joker. It's like the Alvin Kamara, the Darren Sproles, the Pierre Thomas, that type, the guy that can catch out of the backfield, run in the backfield. So
and there's good, like high second round running back candidates for that. Yeah,
great running back draft. And you can sit there and on day 2, pick up a guy who's going to pick up 1,000 yards and, 60 catches. So I'd say Denver and Washington, both based on the young quarterback. And then New England, you don't want to talk about him, but like the optimism is sky high around the Patriots. And also they become
with me and nephew Kyle. And every time we're together, Kyle's waiting for Abdul Carter to fall to 4 because of some amorphous foot thing. And then he's buying the jersey like that day.
It's like it's become all of a sudden a desirable place to play too. And the free agents.
It's funny how that works when you have a good quarterback and a good coach.
No doubt.
It's funny how that shifts.
No doubt. The 4th overall pick is interesting for them because Hunter or Carter could be there if the quarterbacks do go in the top 4. And even if they don't, I think Will Howard's a real possibility. Or the lineman from LSU.
Oh, Will Campbell.
Will Campbell, sorry, not the Ohio State quarterback.
No, but he had the short arms. I was on multiple short arm threads.
It's okay.
So he couldn't even get to 33 inches with his reach. So how's he going to hold back Michael Parsons with those short arms?
The other 2 names would be Mason Graham, who I think you're high on, right?
I'm high on
Michigan. Now,
McShay says there's 3 elite guys in the draft. And that was how I was feeling anyway, knowing nothing, but doing all the prep. And it just feels like, but the thing is with defensive tackle, that's the easiest position to get in free agency. There's a million of them.
True.
If you're trying to put together a team of assets, which is what they need to do, that's probably not where you go. But I want an all pro in this draft. You have to get an all pro in this draft.
So I'm going to put this out here now because his draft stock is slipping because he didn't do anything at the combine and all that. I don't think 4 overall is so crazy for this Tretorora McMillan out of Arizona, also known as T-Mac.
They like him. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of fans in the league, and you're talking about the comparison starts at Drake London, but it can go even higher with this huge wingspan and this huge upside, 6'6" basketball body out of Arizona. Jed Fish was his coach at Arizona, and Jed Fish has a lot of NFL people, and he has been raving about this guy for years. Didn't do anything at the combine, but interviewed everywhere, and apparently he's a great kid. Nickname is T-Mac. I don't see him in the top 10 of any of these mock drafts, and I know that everyone loved what Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas, did, and it's like, he's the guy. I would be shocked if T-Mac falls out of the top 10, and I would think Patriots at 4 might be a little rich, but if you're New England,
that's a trade back. That could be your guy. Flip picks with the Jets or the Saints or whoever, and even Vegas.
Are you scarred by Keanu? What's his name? By N'Keal Harry of going to the state of Arizona for a wide receiver?
The only thing that worries me with T-Mac is the wide receiver class is so bad that when somebody's the best looking person at a party of ugly people, they look fucking so handsome or beautiful.
That was me at the combine. You should see it, dude. You would walk into one of these steakhouses, you would vomit. It is so ugly. And it's all over the country. It's all of us in the media, and everyone's got the same exact look. It's a button down with an ill-fitting blazer and jeans. And like,
it sounds great.
And like maybe someone trying to have like a cool pair of Jordans. It just doesn't work. But like that's the look. Yeah.
Well, but that's what worries me. But if they want him, I think he's in the 8 to 12 range. I don't think they can't take. The team that I could see taking him is Jacksonville at 5, because it seems like it's their decade's mission to just keep spending capital on wide receivers to try to talk themselves into Trevor Lawrence. The Patriots can't block. I'm just going to say that. They can't take Will Campbell at 4 because we don't know if he's a left tackle or guard. But I think them moving back into the 6 to 10 range and taking a receiver or a tackle, it's hard to argue with. But you'd have to move back. You'd have to have a team wanting to move up. Yeah. That's the other thing.
It's also like, and I work for the NFL Network, and I'm going to be doing the draft. Like, it is not the draft class of years prior. There are, like you said, 3 blue chip guys, and I think Mason Graham is borderline blue chip. Like Travis Hunter,
I could see Carter for the Pats though.
Oh, dude,
I think if there's a scenario where people get worried about, what's going on with this foot or any of that shit, and 2 quarterbacks go in the top 3, and Hunter goes
it's Carter.
That would be the dream.
It's Carter.
That's Willie McGinnis, the 96, all over 95 or 94, whenever we got him, all over again.
Did Willie fall in the draft for Parcells?
No, but we took him like 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, this guy is like going to be this guy is going to go chase the quarterback now for the next 10 years for you guys.
Yeah, Carter would be a home run. And it's him and Hunter are like the 2 names. And then you got this other bucket of the quarterbacks where if you're doing an overall players list, they're probably 7, 8, 9, 10. Like if you want to go that way, they're not. And then it's just the great unknown. And it's like, what do you prefer? And it's, I mean, truly, after like the 5th or 6th pick, it is a complete crapshoot to like pick 38, they say, as far as like ranking and stacking these players. So not the richest draft class, but it's also the most intriguing.
At the combine, we did Bleak, we did Happy. What the fuck is that team doing, that people were just kind of gossiping about? Like they were like, the friend in the neighborhood who were like, what's going on in that house?
Yeah.
Just saw some car out there at 3 a.m. What?
Cincinnati's a little bit of a question mark just because they have such a big offseason ahead, and it's really going to be a lot of cap gymnastics, but they have told every agent, they have told every team, like their goal is to bring all 3 of these guys back. And that's Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson.
Franchise tagged Higgins already.
They did, but the intention is not to have him play on another franchise tag. The intention for them is to sign all 3 of these guys to long-term deals. And if I was to stack it, I would say Jamar Chase is their first priority. T. Higgins is their second priority. And then Trey Hendrickson, who led the NFL in sacks and was second overall in Defensive Player of the Year, he would be probably the third priority, which makes him a potential free agent to be signed.
Wow. So we always talk about how you can basically afford 3 giant guys in the NFL, the way they
want all 3.
And if you can pull off 4, well, you got to count Burrow, though.
Burrow's got this huge contract. And Burrow.
So if you're doing Burrow with the 2 receivers, that's an insane use of cap. It's insane.
And also, Bill,
it's not. They just waived Alex Kappa too.
They waived Alex Kappa, which was under.
Although he didn't have a great year, but they're going to waive losing guys already.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to waive guys. And
you can't build a team around a quarterback and 2 receivers and expect that's going to work.
They're going to try.
And they're cheap. They're like the Pats. They're cheap. I mean, Vrabel's tried to change the Pats, but Bengals are cheap. Pats are cheap. So on top of, at least the Chiefs are like spending when they try to do this gymnastics.
They would bristle at the cheap thing. I think historically they're viewed as cheap. So Mike Brown's granddaughter, Elizabeth Blackburn, Elizabeth is the granddaughter of Mike Brown. She's now taking over a little bit more. And like, it's all about, let's make this team fun. Let's make this team marketable, and let's spend money. Like, let's spend money. We have it. Okay. We have to have a cap thing. So like, that's their intention. But Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor have a giant few weeks ahead of them right now. And like, you already saw that Jamar Chase is posting things and T. Higgins is posting things.
Well, Burrow will be a dick, don't you think? Like, if it gets to the point, he will be like 100%. An NBA star putting pressure on them.
100%. He already has been publicly. Yeah. You don't do Radio Row interviews and talk about company business. He was doing that. So I think Cincinnati, a lot of eyes are on them because historically they have this feeling of, small market team, 30-second market. They don't spend money. It's a family run business. And now you finally have put yourself in this position where like, you have to pay up. There's nothing left. It's not going to be good feelings. It's not going to be, it's going to be money. Are you going to spend the money? And do you have a way to use the cap gymnastics? And to also that point, they put up 40 points. They put up 40 points every game last year and they still lost. So if you're focusing all on offense and you're letting the defensive player of the year, the runner-up, walk out, is where your priority's at. So
it's Louis Amarilla's fault. The Higgins Chase, when they play together with Burrow, the numbers are undeniable. They're undeniable. And
they're also the most entertaining team in the league.
Right. But if you're looking at Higgins, and Shield had him as his number 2 free agent, he had Darnold number 1 only because there's no quarterbacks. But the Higgins thing would be, well, what about the games without Chase? Yeah. And you look at those. What happens when the defense is targeted against him versus, I think T. Higgins is amazing.
I think he's unbelievable.
That would be my dream Pats guy. I wouldn't give up the first pick for him, obviously, but the second rounder, I would do in a heartbeat.
Go watch what he did with Jake Browning last year at the end of the season.
Is fucking great.
They were going to T. Higgins on every big play against Minnesota on that Saturday game. And like Higgins is a true number 1. And if they can get both those guys back, great. Back to Darnold really quick.
Yeah.
If you're Minnesota and they're not franchise tagging, they're going to let him hit the market. Okay. What does it say to JJ McCarthy if you do bring him back on a $25 to $30 million contract? Does it tell the rest of the league that JJ McCarthy, we're not like, this is the bind with Minnesota. Like, they don't know what they have in JJ McCarthy. And you could read all the positive press. Like, they don't know what they have in JJ McCarthy. He was injured all last year. He was on the sidelines. Like, they haven't seen him play. So it's not like they know.
If you take a guy in the top 10, he's got to be your quarterback.
Okay. So you let Darnold walk out the door. You don't say, let's try to
2 for 35.
Yeah.
You have an out after 1 year, like one of those type of deals.
And if you're Darnold, you played your best football with Kevin O'Connell. Let me do it one more year, and then I can maybe break the bank. Like, I think they're going to make a very concerted effort.
If I'm Darnold, I'm like, by the way, I had COVID those last 2 games. Sorry, guys.
I was
want to
sick.
tell you.
I was under the weather.
I can't believe you guys didn't get sick.
Why'd you make me play?
Should it make me nervous that the Pats are probably going to spend on Ronnie Stanley? Because I still don't understand why the Ravens would let Ronnie Stanley go as their left tackle.
Because the Ravens have a different salary cap situation and different team, and Ronnie
I'm
Stanley
not
can
nervous
still play.
Then. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Patriots, I'm looking at Zach Bond. If the Eagles let him out, I'm looking at Josh Sweat. I'm looking at Milton Williams. Like,
they said they didn't like Josh Sweat. I think Bond is a real possibility, though.
Bond would be great, and Sweat is good, and like Milton Williams is good. The other name, I don't know if like Nick Bolton from the Chiefs, like unbelievable linebacker.
Is he available?
They can get Nick Bolton. I mean, it's Robert Spillane. Like, these are like real names that can add to this team.
Well, the move is what the Commanders did last year.
Veterans.
Getting those guys that weren't the A-list guys, but they were like it's almost like the White Lotus cast strategy.
No doubt.
It's like, we're going to get Carrie Coon.
Bring me Carrie
She's a really
Coon.
good Carrie Coon's a really good actress. Washington just went out and got like 9 Carrie Coons.
Yes, would that make Zach Ertz your Patrick Schwarzenegger? I think so. I think
maybe
works.
It does.
Austin Eckler starring as Leslie Bibb.
Yeah, Austin Eckler is Greg Gary, the guy, the evil guy.
I mean, that guy's been in all 3 seasons, and I mean, just consistently doesn't say a word on the episods. Just looks at the camera.
Has that, and he was the drug dealer in 90210. He's got one of the great IMDb's of all time. Yeah, he got Dylan hooked on drugs. Khalil Mack. What are the Chargers doing? Bosa and Mack.
Yeah, a bloated.
Could they lose both?
Salary. They could. We'll see. That's why I'm not like, I want to wait and see on that. And this is also Joe Ortiz, who comes from the Ravens. It's his first real offseason. Last year he was the GM and they drafted well, but like, this is now you gotta, it's time to make some decisions that might not be as easy as just drafting and signing players.
Last question. Houston is the most interesting offseason team to me because I don't know how far away they are from being impactful. I thought they were in the mix last year, especially if you look back at how the season went, how they were able to play against the Chiefs defensively. What they were missing feels easy to add. I like their coaching staff. I like their division. They're in a great division. Like that could easily be like a 14-3 team next year.
You were high on them last year.
I was.
And
they had bad luck.
Finished strong. No, they finished strong. And
I know, but Diggs got hurt. Team. They lost 2 receivers by the time we got to the playoffs.
Diggs will be a free agent likely. Yeah. Like he's going to be gone. Okay. What was really interesting to me was Bobby Slowick was one of the offensive masterminds interviewing for head coaching jobs 2 years ago after they had this great successful season. They didn't think they got enough out of the offense. They fired their offensive coordinator, and then they go to the Rams and they get Nick Caley, who was wonderkind under Sean McVay. They bring Caley in, and they also with this offense, like they didn't have, like you said, Stephon Diggs. They didn't have Tank Dell in the last few weeks of the season, and they still in that Chiefs game moved the ball up and down the field. If they don't have 2 botched special teams plays and a block kick and get sacked 8 times, like they're in that game.
In retrospect, that was the red flag game for the Super Bowl. Absolutely. Looking back, as I still continue to kick myself for not just having the balls to take Philly.
You've mentioned this on quite a few pods.
That Houston game was a bad sign for the Chiefs.
No, that game
they hung around like they did with
blocked field goals, muffed kickoffs. Like they got everything from the Texans and they couldn't put them away until the very end. So there was some red flags there. But what are you gonna do? I didn't bet, but I picked the Chiefs to win in that Super Bowl too. And I've heard from Philly fans the entire last month, so it's all good.
We have to go. I have to go talk to Wesley Morris about the Oscars. I'll let you know what happens.
Can I tell you proudly? Have not seen any of these movies. Now I'll go see one of them. I'll go see Honora.
Great move. Honora's good. You should see Honora.
Is it good?
All right. Yeah. Schrags, we'll talk to you before the draft. Great to see you as always.
You're the man, Bill. Thank you.